So let's talk about cover songs. What's the deal with cover songs? Can they get licensed? And more importantly, should you be producing cover songs to get your foot in the door of the TV film sync licensing business? Let's cover the first part. Cover songs, cover songs do get lots of placements. And if you watch TV, you've probably heard many really cool, interesting, unique, creative sort of retakes on original compositions. Especially right now, what's really happening, and I'm starting to notice in a lot of dramas particularly, is old 90s pop rock hits are coming back in these really melodramatic piano cover versions. I was hearing on some show they were doing some Third Eye Blind hits from the 90s, but it was redone in this sort of really melancholy, dramatic piano style with some really beautiful female vocals on it, but kind of creepy sounding as well. So really interesting, take on some of these old hits from the 90s and even the 80s. And now that nostalgia is all the rage, and pretty much all TV shows and movies are now trying to get into the nostalgia market, or at least try to tap a little bit into that. There's certainly going to be a big marketplace for sort of these old covers, these old songs coming back in a new cover form. Okay. So they do get placed, and you've probably heard them, especially since a lot of them obviously have vocals. They probably get paid fairly well, because vocals usually get paid a higher rate just because the perceived value is much higher. And usually tracks with vocals on them, more often than not, will be placed in the foreground or actually in the source of the scene. So they usually have a more noteworthy placements, and usually the more important the placement is, or the more noticeable it becomes, or basically crucial it becomes for the scene, the more the royalty is going to be. Okay, so certainly they are game in terms of they do get placements. Now, however, here's the big twist, and I need you guys all to be aware of this. If you're currently working with a library, if you want to get into cover songs, here's what you need to do. And this is for those of you that are with a library already. You've already got a contract and you're regularly submitting to them, and you've got a relationship. If you don't have a relationship yet, I'll talk about your situation right after this, okay? But if you have a library, you're signed with your library, and you have a good relationship, and you've been sort of cranking out lots of music, and you've been delivering, so you've really been sort of cementing your brand as the hungriest go-to producer, whatever the genre it is, on their label, and you want to get into cover songs, send them an email, give them a call, and ask them, do you guys need cover songs for any of the clients that you're working with? I would like to get into cover songs. Is there any opportunities in the future where you could see that I could potentially submit some cover songs for your catalog? What I don't recommend you do is just secretly start working on a whole album of cover songs and then just submit it to them and say, well, here you go, hope you're impressed. And I'll tell you why. And this is also now relating into those of you that do not have a library under your belt yet. You don't have a working relationship yet. We haven't been accepted yet by a library. In order to get a cover song cleared, you have to go to the original copyright owner and ask for permission. Okay, so no matter what track you're doing, unless the track is in public domain, you don't have to worry about that. But most cover songs that you're hearing on TV are not in the public domain, and those are actually, they've gotten permission from the original publishers, copyright owners, whoever that happens to be, okay? So the reason why I don't recommend, if you're with a library, or even if you're without a library, to just make a whole album of cover songs and then submit it to a library for the first time, or even to a library you've been working with, is because they may or may not have the resources or the just desire to go through and ask for clearance on all the songs that you've done. Because if you've done 12 different songs, they've got to go to 12 different publishers, 12 different copyright owners, track all that down, get permission. It might be more paperwork, more headaches, right? Usually what you're going to find in this business is that your libraries that you work with, they will have clients that will specifically ask for cover songs for a specific placement, right? And usually these come with upfront sync fees. They're a little bit more lucrative, okay? It's usually not the stuff they're going to just throw in the background, right? If they want a cover song, it's because they want the audience to recognize and resonate with this cover song. So there's a lot of value in that. So usually what I've found in this business is I have not really been asked to do a lot of cover songs, but the few times that I've sort of stumbled into that side of the business, it's when there's already a client, there's already a budget, there's already a TV show, there's always a want or a need for that particular cover song, and they're willing to pay for a really great rendition of a particular song, okay? That's usually how it works. Not across the board. There are certainly libraries that have albums and albums of cover songs, but they are now in that business, and they obviously have clients that want these kind of cover songs. So they are more than happy to go to the original copyright owners, ask for permission, because they are going to be splitting some of that revenue with the original songwriter. So again, that cuts into the music library's back end, their publishing income, which is their bread and butter. That's how they stay in business. So hopefully you can see now, especially if you're not with a library at all and you think you're going to just knock their socks off by sending these cover songs to a library for the first time. They might sound really great, but they might not be applicable, and the library you're submitting to might not have any interest or need for cover songs. So what I recommend you do is, if you want to get into cover music, first get your foot into the door with a library, with instrumental, or if you're going to do vocal music, original music, just all 100% original music that you can 100% say it's 100% mine and I can exclusively license it with you, okay? So that's what I would say, is get in the door first, start building your relationships. Once you're in there and once they sort of get a sense that you're delivering on time and you're constant, a great producer to have on the roster, then you can open that door up and that possibility up to say, hey, I'm also really interested and excited about cover songs. Maybe you have a particular style that you want to go into. Maybe it's a certain kind of genre from the 90s or the 80s, or even current stuff, pop stuff, that you want to do some sort of remakes on. If you can create something really interesting and unique and twist sort of a very common track or really well-known track into something completely brand new, and more importantly, steer it into a completely new emotional lane, that's the key, right? So when I was talking about those Third Eye Blind covers, you know, they were kind of upbeat and poppy and dancey in the 90s, but these new takes on them are sad, dramatic, and just really, really emotional in a different way. So in some ways, if you can provide some sort of a big twist like that on old standards or even current music, that might be a great way to get in. But again, I recommend, don't put your foot forward with that. That should be something that you introduce to a library after you've got a working relationship and after you feel that, you know, you can obviously afford the time to start cranking out those kind of tracks, because they'll definitely take a lot more time, especially if you're not used to doing vocal work. You know, recording vocals is an animal and an art form all of it into itself. So you got to be aware that this is going to be more, and it's going to take a lot longer than probably what you're used to if you're just doing instrumental tracks. So anyways, guys, those are my thoughts on cover songs. Let me know what you think. If you have any further questions, leave a comment below. Please leave a like. I always appreciate that. And do subscribe. I put out really helpful videos like this every single Monday and Wednesday.